Hello, everybody. Good morning. Texas Homer here with Paul Wadlington. It's the Tuesday show. Y'all know what we do. We break down the upcoming opponents. We'll have a little bit of a quick thought from the Florida game. Then we'll look at the Arkansas offense, Arkansas defense, and opponent games of interest. Paul will tell us what he's thinking. And it's going to be interesting with with such an intense race in the SEC. So a lot of the games are of automatic of interest, even though they will be easy wins versus like FCS teams. But it's more to talk about what that could occur in the future. Paul, how art thou?
I am blessed. Hashtag blessed.
Beautiful, beautiful.
What's going on, man?
Nothing, man. Just doing the show with you, man.
Texas is 8-1. Just blew out Florida. You feeling good?
I am feeling good.
Did you have some viewers' consternation put at ease, or do you still have it?
No, dude. But that was my consternation. You cannot be put in a corner. It will always occur. I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop. You don't get beat by the good things you do. You get beat by the bad things you do. So no matter what, I kind of hunt for the negative because I think of it like if I was going to play that team, I'm going to look at their negatives. What can I exploit? And that mindset can have its downsides where you don't enjoy 8-1 as much as you should.
Well, you sound like the Texas fans who, after leading 42-0 and winning the game 49-17, are now deeply distraught that Florida ran the football in the second half.
Yeah. We talked about that yesterday on the morning live, and it's pretty interesting. They were in the 89th percentile for rushing, but removing the context of it was the second quarter, we didn't really care. That's kind of the trick. Jacob, good morning, dude. All right, Paul.
Good morning to the chat. Y'all bring your questions, please. As we're talking, we see a good question or an interesting comment, we will elevate you and discuss it. So please bring it. We're only as good as you guys.
Absolutely. Take us off course whenever you would like.
Absolutely.
So what were your quick Florida thoughts, Paul? We don't want to stick on it too long. We've done a lot of thought on that over the past weekend, but what are you thinking?
As always, I write my postmortems on Inside Texas, along with other folks like Ian. He's got his 5 thoughts, immediate reaction after the game. I write a postmortem about the defense and the offense. I just thought Texas played very well. They should have. Florida was really beaten down. As you guys know, if you listen to this or you read my previews, they were down their top 3 cornerbacks. They already had safeties with a penchant for blowing coverages, Connor. They lived up to that billing. And we had a lot of wide open guys running around on the field. And I think part of that was Sark started penning down some plays on backs and napkins and stuff while he was out eating dinner. And I think you saw that on Saturday offensively. A lot of creativity. Viewers looked very comfortable. Offensive line was great after 2 bad little mess ups back to back by DJ Campbell in the first drive. The O-line dominated. And then second half, we ran the ball when we wanted to. So that's always encouraging. It was also kind of cool that the offense was crowdsourced, right? No single player was the dominant conduit of offense. So a bunch of different Longhorn receivers caught the ball. No one had more than 67 yards. No one had more than 3 catches. Yet Texas had 352 yards passing. So, and frankly, I think if we wanted to have 550 passing, I think we could have done it.
Yeah, minus some drops too, right?
Yep, absolutely. And then on defense, just played very basic. Didn't want to allow anything over the top, anything explosive, no cheapies. And, when you're leading 35-0 at halftime, you're doing a good job on defense. And then this is the first opponent this year, Connor, to break 300 yards. Disgraceful. I know. So, Florida, look, they have legitimate running backs. They have a good physical offensive line, and they just decided, hey, we're going to build some foundation for next week. They weren't trying to win the game at the end, obviously. Right. They're trying to run the ball and get some confidence and get those running backs going. And they did a good job. So hats off to them. If either one of those running backs want to transfer, Connor, we could put like a phone number for our personnel guy in the chat. Yep. We'll take Jaden Baugh if he wants to come to Texas. But I got to think Alfred Collins. I've been trying to call him out in every forum and format. That guy was absolutely dominant. And talk about the box score lying. If you look at it and you scan it, you go, 2 tackles. He didn't do much. Deflected 2 passes that led to interceptions. Those 2 interceptions directly led to Texas touchdowns. He also had a key double team defeat in our red zone on a 3rd and short. Had Florida even gotten a yard and a half on that play, they go for it on 4th down, right?
Yeah.
Collins stopped them cold. Florida came out, tried to kick a field goal. They missed the field goal. You could argue that Alfred Collins was largely responsible for 18 to 21 points of a momentum swing just off plays he made. So that might be overstating it. He aided and abetted 18 to 21 points of a momentum swing. And when you're playing defensive tackle, that's a massive impact. So I just think, yeah, Josh has a comment here. Alfred has turned himself into a high 2nd, low 3rd round player. You know what? Set your sights higher, Josh. He's going to test well as well. And they're going to love the fact that he's 6'5", he's long, he's 320. He's multiple. He's a guy that you could play on the edge in certain schemes in the NFL, and they love that versatility. So Alfred Collins, he is playing great ball for Texas, and he is making himself a lot of money.
Yeah, like you said, good in the pass rush, and we've seen him split double and triple teams, so he's been able to be versatile. It's awesome to see. We've been waiting on him forever, man. You remember the Colorado game where the interception? Like, we've been waiting on him to really show out. He's been special since day one. We're just looking for him to put it together. But that's been awesome. Well, his size and traits, he's going to be a top 40 pick. Yeah, traits-wise, he's all there. That's going to be cool.
Yeah, he's going to test well as well. And I just think people – so Alfred's a guy, when you see, like, on the hoof, as they say,
yeah,
it makes an impression.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, we feel good about Florida. I don't really know what if we beat them 40-something to 0, that's the only improvement. Other than that, they answered all the questions we wanted to see from Vandy. The offense looked better. I thought Stark's scheme was more on point. I thought he took more shots downfield. I thought the offensive line looked better, like you said, safe for the beginning. Quinn had more confidence. Still not perfect with setting his feet, but looked better. I thought Bond being back on the field made a clear difference. And that opens up a lot more underneath. So I think it's important. I saw a lot of what I wanted to see. I like the running backs. I like seeing Gibson in there. I liked going for it on 4th and whatever in our own 20. That's my style of play, man.
Football. I thought that was crazy at the time. And then when we made it, I was like, great job, Sark. Good job.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love it every time. And then when we don't get it, I have to like delete my tweet.
Yeah, I'm Mr. Go for it at midfield, right?
Yeah.
4th and 7 or less at midfield, just go for it, right? It's actually worth it from an expected value standpoint. But once you start getting inside our 25, then I'm a little more conservative. But hey, hat tip to Sark. They didn't have a ton of respect for Florida's offense.
I was going to say, you don't do that versus Georgia. That's one of the ones like, look, we'll spot you 7 here, but I'm trying to prove a point,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you don't do that versus good teams, but I still like the message it sent. And
all right, we got a hog in the pin. We got a hog in the comments. Welcome, man.
Let's make it a good one, fellas. Taylor Green is ready to run. Yeah. He's been fun to break down, man. Special athlete. All right. So are you prepared? Let us go to the Arkansas offense.
We are prepared to talk about Razorback offense. And Hog fan, you help guide us.
Yes. All right. So we do the stats like you guys know, and we do the personnel side. Paul, I think you wanted to kind of look at it from the personnel side and then kind of go into the stats. Is that how you wanted to structure a little bit?
Yeah, we're going to start with the Hog offense. All right, let's do that.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the man, the myth, the legend, Taylor Green. So it is obligatory since 2005 that any moderately athletic black quarterback of any size must be compared to Vince Young if he rushes for 6 yards on a zone read. Taylor Green actually looks like he who shall not be named. He's not as good. He's not as explosive. He's not as dynamic, but it looks like him. When he runs, you'll see it. And he's got that stride that's so long that you can see defenders miscalculating where he's going to be. And plus, he's a big physical guy. When he was at Boise, actually, Connor, I was kind of got hip to him. And I've seen him in a bowl game. He had a 91-yard touchdown run at Boise. So he is fully capable of pulling the ball down and running. The big development for him is Bobby Petrino has really helped him as a passer, at least as an explosive passer down the field. So that is a big part of this Arkansas offense. They are not run first. They are capable of running the ball. but they're pretty much 50-50 on offense. Would you agree?
Yeah, they're right around there. And he's not very strong in the shorter, like intermediate to short. He's a below average completion rate guy. But deep, like you said, he's above average. So he's not a field. Taylor Green is not a field general. No. He's not going to sit back there and pick you apart. Petrino's really helped him with like that slow drag that they hit to Armstrong. Like it's an easy route and they hit him on the end and he can do that. But they can hit you deep. They'll try to hit you deep. But he's not going to sit back and get you. And he has this. He wants to roll out. If you give him any type of pressure there. So he has this problem with leaking back of the pocket. He's almost always behind his tackles.
Yes. And in fact, you'll see this reflected in the stats that he actually, contrary to public opinion, that running dual threat running back, quarterbacks, I should say, actually gets sacked more than pocket quarterbacks because they show up in places the O-line doesn't expect, and they always think they can use their feet to bail themselves out. So you'll see when we look at the stats that Arkansas gets sacked a lot. And that part of that's also their offensive line not being very good at pass blocking.
And because of that, second worst time to throw in the league, 3.2 seconds. So holds the ball forever.
So
because he's confident.
Yeah, play action, a big part of the Arkansas offense. And Bobby Petrino, as always, he's trying to put your safeties in conflict constantly. So
yeah. AR, we'll hit your question real quick. Do you think Sark Quinn had a good answer for the blitz? I think they made them pay with the touchdown to Helm.
Yes. So if you look, Florida was blitzing early, and they were doing sort of replacement sim pressures and blitzes, like team blitzes, safeties, linebackers, corners. Early success with that, especially when they combined it with that loop. They fooled DJ Campbell. Once we cleaned that up, and then once we had that called blitz to Helm, that's exactly right, AR. That's the thing that cleaned it up. Florida stopped blitzing after that. Quinn was 4 of 6 for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns against the blitz. Once that happened, Florida just called it off and said, let's take our whipping.
Yeah.
You got to have that against Arkansas because, as we'll talk about this little preface for a little foreshadowing for the defense. Travis Williams, the Arkansas defensive coordinator, the master of junk defenses. So you've got to show the ability to crush those junk looks with quick recognition. Because if you can, Arkansas doesn't have any answers for Texas. But if we struggle with it, it's going to be a long day up in Fayetteville.
Yeah, their 3-2-6 is fun. Quinn clearly has a better arm than Jackson Dart, but does Quinn throw the deep ball as well? Is it a footwork thing? Jackson Dart, I mean, as far as efficiency, I mean, watching the Arkansas game, it's like the dude couldn't miss deep. So I think he's a better deep ball thrower, but let's verify that with facts. And Paul, whatever you think, I'm going to see what their completion rates are deep.
Dart is a better deep ball thrower. And part of that is how they dial up the offense, but also Dart can hit those shots. Is it a footwork thing? It's partly that. It's partly a mechanics thing. I think we've talked about this about 1 million times and broken it down every which way. But basically, Quinn doesn't always have duplicable mechanics, and that shows up on those deep balls and setting his feet, not throwing off his back foot. And, like, for example, the touchdown pass to Golden, he threw a fadeaway for really no reason. He didn't
Correct. Yeah, no pressure, back foot, just slung it across his body like that.
Yeah, it's sort of inexplicable. But, yeah, no, Jackson Dart is a more effective deep ball thrower. I'll stake my reputation on it, Connor.
Well, you're about to keep your reputation because, Jackson Dart, 46% completion over 20 yards. Quinn Ewers, 36%.
There you go.
And with Quinn, it's just I never feel like, and I don't know if I'm explaining this clearly, Paul, if this makes sense, let me know. But some quarterbacks are downhill throwers. They're like whenever they're really going over the top of themselves. And that's when I feel like you can generate a lot of like a smooth arc on the ball. Quinn is almost, even when he's set and based, it's still this kind of no matter what throw.
Well, he's also not releasing it there. He's releasing it here.
I just don't ever feel like Quinn's a fastball. You get what I'm saying? I never feel like it's a fastball. And so that's what I always think is kind of interesting with his throw style. And a lot of deep balls, I mean, when you see it on a rope, that's what I like in a deep ball thrower, opposed to just everything has to be this arc.
You're not a Jeff Blake fan?
I'm not.
All right.
Even like, remember when Quinn threw the moonshot versus Arkansas?
Yeah.
Everyone was like, man, that's awesome. I'm like, no, that's so unnecessary. Like,
It's Alabama.
yeah, Alabama. It's like,
Yeah.
it makes, there's no reason it had to do that. Like,
It looked cool.
It looked cool, but it's like he's open. But yeah. Do I think that we're going to be able to recreate Ole Miss's Arkansas thing? That's not really our game. And the answer is no.
Well, here's the deal. So if you guys didn't see or catch any highlights of that game, Ole Miss went in there and thrashed them 63-30. Frankly, Ole Miss probably could have put up more points if they wanted. Jackson Dart hit 3 passes of 60 yards plus. I mean, they just lit them up. Yeah, Pigpen, thank you. Our freshman DBs were crispy bacon after Ole Miss. Atrocious. Yeah, agreed. Again, Arkansas is going to have to rejigger some stuff in their secondary. I think they're going to play 3 deep or 2 deep safeties at all times. And I think they're going to force Texas into – they're going to try to simulate some of the things that Georgia did or even OU did in that regards. So we shall see. Always not always a good sign when you're 9 games deep when your coach says we're throwing open all the jobs in the secondary. So that's what they did during the bye week because they were not happy with the Ole Miss performance. So I think schematically they're going to come up with something, but let's polish.
But also, man, they're getting beat on one-on-ones on the outside.
Yes.
It wasn't purely schematic getting pulled apart. There's no answer for that. No. Either you have a guy that can play man or you don't. You know, and you went through 5 different guys. I mean, there's 5 different secondary guys. So there's really not an answer for something like that. But also, that's not really Texas. Texas is not really a fade ball throwing team. So we don't really take advantage of that style. We're not really good at hitting the post. We've been good at hitting the seams. But I don't expect us to recreate, or even Sark doesn't really have that like Kiffin mindset there either to be like put up 60. Because I mean, Ole Miss was throwing into the fourth quarter. There was some vendetta there. Like they were mad about Arkansas beating them in the past. So I don't think Sark will have the motivation to perform at that.
Here's a theme. The advanced statistics are great, but advanced statistics can still be queered by certain stuff. And that is this: Arkansas is feast or famine. Yeah. I swear to God, Connor, half their plays are either a negative play sack or it's a 50-yard completion or a run. Like, they don't do anything steady. They're very explosive, but you can create havoc on their side of the ball. And it's really weird. They're a team that in 3rd and 15, you're in trouble potentially because they can still convert that. Whereas on 2nd and 2, they'll hand off the ball and have a 5-yard loss. So it's a really weird team. So I'll give you an example of how the means and averages can be deceptive. If you take Elon Musk, and then you take 9 other employees at Tesla, secretaries, and you average their compensation together.
Right.
You could say the average employee at Tesla makes $2.5 billion a year. That is a factual statement. It is not a true statement, right?
Yep.
That's the danger of means and averages. It gives you a middle that actually isn't true because Arkansas spends a lot of time out on each extreme of the bell curve. Do you think that's fair?
100%. Okay. Yeah. We'll talk about how Jekyll and Hyde they are. And if they could just get out of their own way, they'd be a really, really scary offense.
Yeah. I mean, Arkansas would be in SEC contention if they were a little more
1,000%. All right. Before we hit that, though, let's hear a word from Laura Baker.
Hi. I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512 or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
All right. This is a good question. I'm trying to find it, though. Is Arkansas more of a complete offense than Vandy?
Personnel-wise.
I was going to say, let's explore that because, like we said, they play on the extremes here. Okay, so when we're looking at their total offense, yards per play, 28th in the country. First-year coordinator, great stuff. 51st in points per drive, lower than we would expect with those numbers. We'll see that because they have horrible red zone scoring.
Mm-hmm.
Offensive success rate, though, right? Moving the ball forward, 9th in the country. Awesome. Explosiveness, 31st in the country. Awesome. A lot of this is schematic. Petrino's doing a really good job there. Now, this is where the rubber meets the road. 125th in the country in havoc rate. So you see, yeah, and you're seeing wow play followed by a head scratcher consistently all the time.
20% of their plays have an element of havoc. Havoc is defined as a negative play, sack, fumble, turnover, interception, penalty, right?
Tip ball, yep.
Tip ball. So they're very explosive, a lot of big plays. And then right after that big play, they'll push themselves out of field goal range because they have a sack followed by a fumbled snap.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like when we like talking about Taylon Green, if you watch Taylon Green's highlights, you'd be terrified to play him. But equally, if you watch Taylon Green's low light tape, you'd be ecstatic to play him.
And the theme to his low light tape would be yakety sacks.
Yeah. And it'd be fumbles. It would just be fumbles everywhere. Because Taylon Green right now leads the country, leads all of FBS in fumbles. He has 11 fumbles. He's averaging more than 1 per game.
11 fumbles and 7 interceptions.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's wild. All right. So let's talk running backs real quick, and then we'll go back to the stats. So let's talk personnel running backs, and then we can back that up with our statistics. Start with our old player. He used to play for Texas, if you guys remember. He was going to be a quarterback for us. He's out of Duncanville, leaves us, goes to Utah, has a good career there at running back, and then ends up at Arkansas. So, and he's been injured with, what was it, ankle or knee? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Ankle or knee for the past couple weeks, but he'll likely be returning. So, and like we said, great size, 6'2", 233, a lot of experience too. So what do you think of Jaquindon Jackson leading the room?
Good power runner, more shake than you think, partly because he's a taller, more angular guy. And like Braylon Russell, his backup, who I think he's going to be okay for this game. I'm not sure.
He will.
He's a big boy, 6'1", 250. He's a freshman. Arkansas's got good backs, and I think they're very comparable to Florida's running backs. And you saw that we had some trouble getting those big boys on the ground when they got to the second and third levels. So we're going to have similar struggles with Jaquindon and with Braylon. Just get him on the ground and live for another day. Don't let him bust the big run, and that's going to be key.
And Braylon Russell, he has good breakaway. You would think with 253 he would just be a tank, but no, he's able to break away on guys. Braylon Russell is a very intriguing running back. And Rodney Hill is out of Florida State. Very patient runner in the backfield at Florida State, but like literally too patient. Like he'll sit there for a while, man. And he averaged like 3.8 yards per carry at Florida State. Not that good. This year, I think he's 5.2 before he went out. He's been gone for a while. We just have to see with Rodney Hill what he's going to do. Fourth string, Rashad Dubinion. He came in because everyone's been hurt, but he's actually like had some really good numbers. He's like third in the SEC in yards after contact per attempt. So they just have good depth here, and returning with a lot of health should make a difference for them. So rushing plays rate, they're about 50-50 right here. Rushing attempts per game, 34th in the country. Yards per rush, 41st. Rushing success rate, 5th. Moving forward, that's important. And rushing explosivity, 33rd. So a good run game, a respectable run game, and you add in the quarterback run on top of that, I think it complicates it further because Taylon Green is the second highest yards per attempt running quarterback in the league. So Taylon Green can, of course, improvise on a rollout, but he can also do designed runs. So it's a varied rushing attack, and you don't just have to worry about the running back. You have to worry about Taylon Green pulling it. Pretty fun. Offensive line. Better run blocking team than they are a pass blocking team.
By far.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an understatement. 41st in offensive line yards, 39th in power rushing success rate. So short yardage downs, power downs, they do pretty well. like Paul said earlier, stuff rate, no good. 21 out of 5 times somebody's able to break in the backfield. Alfred Collins will split a double team and take it back down and put him behind the sticks. Wide receiver time?
Wide receiver guy, you highlighted the right guy. So this is a classic X receiver, Andrew Armstrong. This is the guy to know. This is the name to know. 6'4", 200 pounds. He can run. He's got a huge catch radius, and he will moss your ass downfield. He is a really good player. He's got like almost 900 yards receiving, and he is by far their leading receiving threat. He is a downfield receiving threat. Interestingly, he's only got 1 touchdown. Isn't that weird?
It is weird. I know.
He's kind of got the Michael Irvin thing. If you're an old Cowboys fan, like Michael Irvin had this incredible knack for getting tackled on the 2-yard line.
Yeah.
But Andrew Armstrong, that is the guy we've got to stop. And if you can stop him and the downfield explosiveness, you've gone a long way to getting a handle on that Arkansas passing game.
Yeah, I would say you've cut off the head of it.
Yep.
It's not saying much, but we've won every game that we had 0 turnovers in. I absolutely believe that.
Yes.
That this is a good offense that keeps shooting itself in the foot. If Arkansas can stay out of their own way, they're absolutely a threat to everyone. All right, Andrew Armstrong. So 84, like we can see, 84 targets. The next closest amount of targets is 41. So he's 2 times the number 2 receiver. So he's a huge part of the offense. Downfield, he can absolutely do that. What I found is most interesting about him for his body style at 6'4", 200, 50% of his stuff comes under 10 yards.
Yeah.
So he for his size, his route running and footwork and understanding of how to set up DBs is really impressive. Because when I see 6'4", I just think he can jump high, and he doesn't have the real traits of a receiver. Andrew Armstrong absolutely has all of that. So this guy has a complete game. He can work you at any part of the field. He can scare you downfield with his length, but also he can set up DBs on a 3-step route and win that as well. And so I think he's an impressive player, and I think Petrino also relies on him to be the passing offense. And you can see that because he's not contextual on how he's used. He's used at every level of the field and for a ton of different concepts. But what he'll frustrate Texas fans with the most likely will be this, what they call their slow drag. So that very slow crosser underneath the linebackers, and then they'll hit him on the other side of the field, and he can turn upfield. Really effective with that. Andrew Armstrong is the 2nd graded wide receiver in the SEC. He's been really, really effective for them. Isaiah Satania, slot receiver.
He's their number 2, right?
Yeah, he's the number 2 in targets. He's technically tied with Broden for 41 each, but we can explain why Broden shouldn't even be on the field in a second. So Satania, slot, faster player, 185, 5'11", 185 pounds. I think he got SEC freshman or something of the year like a couple years ago or a year ago. So he hasn't been performing as up to that level. Like they've, want to pass short and give him yak, and he's like middle of the pack in yards after catch. So not really dominant there. They'll of course send him deep. Any speed guy will get sent deep, but he's not performing at the level you would expect him to, in my opinion. I think he's graded overall 28th of 44 SEC receivers right now. It's kind of a big drop. Tesla, which is a fun name, Isaac Tesla, is also a slot, but very different. This is unique, right? They have a little speedy slot in Satania, but then they also have a 6'4", 217-pound senior that kind of functions more as like a motioned out tight end in that regard. And he goes deep. They send Tesla out, and he's at 20 targets, but he's getting more stuff lately. So he has a 6th best 20 yards per reception out of tight ends, but he doesn't have enough snaps to be graded. Have you seen him yet? Have you got to study him yet?
Nope.
He's interesting. He doesn't come on there that often, but pay attention to him when he is on there, because they're not just using a big guy to like body you for a sitting down route. He's fun. And then the guy I have to give the take on, Tyrod Broden, 6'7", 200 pounds, redshirt senior, 41 targets. He's been a disaster. Like, I don't know he shouldn't be on the field with what he's putting out. It's pretty crazy. So he has the SEC worst 36% catch rate.
Yeah.
That's crazy. He leads all 130 plus FBS teams in drop balls, and 25% of his passes thrown his way bounce off his hands. That's also number one.
He looks like they grabbed a small forward off the Arkansas basketball team and said, "Hey, line up here and run a route."
Yeah, I would put Jordan Anthony on the field, the younger player with only like 13 targets over Broden. There's no point to have him on the field.
You know who I think that their number 2 target against us is going to be?
Who?
Luke Haas.
Yeah, the tight end.
The tight end. He was banged up earlier in the year. If you look, so his total stats aren't very daunting, but if you're privy to Arkansas data, and I write my preview, and so I kind of knew the scoop on the coaches viewed him as a potential star. He started as a true freshman last year. Against Ole Miss, 5 catches, 77 yards, 1 touchdown. Against Mississippi State the week before, 4 catches, 59 yards, 2 touchdowns. So before that, he'd been limited some by injury, but he is back. He's healthy, and he is a guy that I think is their second best target behind Armstrong. And I think they're going to try to work that Armstrong tight end combination with Jalen Green, 2 read routes, and they're going to do it off play action. Armstrong deep, Haas running something, breaking underneath, and let Talon make an easy decision. Haas was supposed to be Hunter Henry 2.0. Yeah. I mean, he's very well regarded. And if you look at his production the last 2 weeks when he's been healthy, he's clearly their number 2 option.
Yep. They keep him in line a lot, 77% of the time. So so they're not motioning him out to the slot. So you do need to be he'll slip out from the Merc, exactly like Paul is saying.
Yep.
On those rollouts. So be aware of that. He's reliable, second best, 86% catch rate. And he's also effective with a third best 14.1 yards per reception. Overall, second best receiving tight end in the conference. So like Paul says, the data backs that up, that be on the lookout for Haas because he's going to be an important part of their game plan. And Talon Green loves to roll out. So if you can sneak him out, those are easy, 2nd and 3 type plays. All right, let's look at the passing offense. Yards per pass, really good, right? 15th in the country. Passing yards per game, who cares? 17th, though. Passing success rate, also 21st. This is what's really unique is like Petrino has created this really efficient, consistent offense. If they just don't kill themselves, they're a real problem. Passing explosivity, 47th, still above average. Big problem, though, right? QB sack percentage, 111th in the country. This is both. Normally, whenever I see a quarterback that hangs back too much, I don't blame the offensive line because the quarterback's inviting pressure, but it's actually both. The Arkansas offensive line is not good at pass blocking, and Talon Green's inviting too much pressure.
Yeah, he doesn't have great feel in the pocket. He's dangerous if he breaks out of it and gets a straight line run, but he'll drift. He'll do things in the pocket that there's no out. So he's either going to get sacked or he's going to have to chunk a ball up as like a jump ball. And it's not something they've been able to coach out of him. And I'm sure Petrino wants to kill him sometimes, but he also makes huge plays that you can't take him out of the game.
Yeah, that's the low light tape. I mean, there's been plays with Talon Green that have made me laugh. Like they're so dumb. And so like there's no all risk and no reward style plays that he'll do. But then on the flip side, you'll see him take off like a deer and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. So passing game, also a good passing game. But like we said, there's so much Jekyll and Hyde here, right? So great running game, but 11 fumbles. Good passing game, too many picks. Good passing offense, too many sacks. There's all these kind of issues that are occurring consistently for them. So overall, their efficiencies, they're 56 in the country, meaning, when they get the ball, how often do they score? And what's also interesting, right? They have really bad standard downs rate, like 76 in the country. Standard downs being downs where you could run or pass, and people aren't really sure. But they're still really successful in these situations. 7th in the country there, even though they're not getting it a lot. They're bad in passing downs because they're bad at standard downs as well. 10th in success rate there. So it's really impressive.
I've got a question for you, and I can't make sense of this just from what you know of Arkansas.
Yeah.
Good run blocking on the line, or at least acceptable. Big, strong, powerful running backs. Big, strong, dual threat quarterback. Big, tall receivers. Good tight end. Why can't they convert in the red zone?
That's the weird part too. I don't know what it is.
It doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah, it ends up, but it's like, I feel like it's kind of like us last year. Like there's a schematic confusion there that's like occurring. That's the answer. Because Taylor Green should be able to do a quarterback draw. Taylor Green should be able to throw it up to Broden if he could actually catch. They have big, powerful backs. Like you said, it's in Braylon Russell at 250 up the gut. It's just not happening for them.
That's weird.
Pigpen, let me know what you think too. Watching every snap through the year, let me know why do you guys keep bogging down in the red zone? Because they are 97th in the country in the red zone. So, and they've been in between the 20s, man. Like they'll freak you out if you don't know that they bog down. You're gonna be like, man, they're gonna put up 50 on us. You ready to go?
Is that your segue?
Yeah, I'm saying you ready to go to old Paul, but here's what I want to hit first. 134th in the country. Fumbles per game.
Yeah.
Interceptions per game, 72nd. It's a tough go. So just know this team will freak you out. And they might, they've been so bad they might have a game where they have 0 turnovers. If they have that game, Texas is going to be in a real fight.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. So just know if they start making dumb mistakes the whole time, we're going to be all right. If not, there's potential that Arkansas can absolutely give us a game. It's going to be it'll be scary if they control the ball, in my opinion. It's going to be interesting.
Well, I'll tell you what, control's important. And there's an area of your life, Connor, that you better not fumble the ball. You know what that is?
Mortgages.
Getting your home mortgage. This is the most important financial decision most of us will make in our lives. Get the best in your corner. The best, Gabe Winslow. 832-557-1095. Why, Gabe? Well, over 20 years in the industry, passionate Longhorn fan, has a law degree. He's just an expert at this. He makes the numbers dance. And he is a private broker, meaning he's got access to over 80 different lenders. You go get your mortgage from Big Bank X, Chase, Wells Fargo. Guess what? They work banker's hours, and they only have one conduit for your loan. It's not competitive, and they're not working on your behalf or in your interest. If you have a problem and you need to call Gabe at midnight and you're closing the next day, you pick up the phone, you're going to get Gabe, and he's going to start solving problems. You call the guy that works at Chase, you're going to get a voicemail, and you're going to get a voicemail the next day as well. So good luck. Anyway, give Gabe a call. He is the best at what he does. 832-557-1095.
Gabe's the man. Arkansas defense. All right, let's look at the comments real quick. With the Hogs.
I like Brent has a correct comment as well. I think we'll need to get to.
We'll hit him in 1 second. Will we get the Hogs versus Tennessee or the Hogs versus Ole Miss? That's the question, right?
And that's a defensive question.
Yeah.
Great lead in. So for those of you who don't know, Arkansas has a new DC. His name is Travis Williams. He played football at Auburn, also played in the NFL. He's a linebacker. He's an interesting guy because he knows that Arkansas, and they've got a good front. We'll talk about that. But he knows that they're a little sketchy at linebacker and in the secondary. He game plans every opponent every week. And what do I mean by that? Well, everyone game plans their opponent. What I mean is that Arkansas comes out with something novel every week based on what their opponent does well. And they try to take something away that opponent does as a staple. And sometimes he hits, as against Tennessee when the Arkansas defense played really good football. Sometimes he misses, as against Ole Miss when the Arkansas defense did not play very good football. And then there's games like LSU where they have a little bit of success, and then LSU figures out what they're doing and then pretty much stomps them. So it's a really interesting approach. It's very feast or famine, just like the Arkansas offense, but it's feast or famine by game plan, not just execution. So Arkansas had a bye. They've spent 2 weeks on Texas.
Yep.
And make no mistake, this is their Super Bowl. This is a statement game. They're 5-4. After us, they play a scrub, Louisiana Tech, I think. And then they play Missouri, who I think they'll beat if Missouri can't get back Brady Cook. So if they can beat Texas, Sam Pittman's going to save his job.
Yeah.
And they're going to a bowl. If they can't beat Texas, they're 5-5, and it's kind of like season on the brink. So they are going to roll out a crazy defensive game plan, and they're going to run a bunch of stuff because, frankly, it's not just desperation. That's kind of what works against Quinn Ewers. What do you think, Homer?
Well, I think they're at a tipping point because, frankly, they were showing quit versus Ole Miss. And so I think they're at a point emotionally as a team. You know how we were talking about Napier, like they keep playing for Napier? They didn't keep playing for Pittman when they were getting smacked. And so you're seeing kind of players give up. So I think Arkansas psychologically is at a tipping point. I think it's really valuable for them to have gotten that bye with Texas on the back end of that, because that can be a unifying kind of, transfer mentality for them. Hey, Texas coming in, it might be a uniting factor. But if Texas does get up early and Texas does put a lot of work in, I could see this team kind of emotionally submarining. So I do think it's interesting. I do think they'll get up for Texas. But I also think some kind of the setting here too of an 11 a.m. game isn't as ideal for them either. So we'll kind of see. The defense, like you said, that's what I really like about the coordinator. I like coordinators that do that. They take risk and try to set you up. Now, can you get great at everything, changing things weekly? Probably not. And there's a reason why people are consistent. But when they came out in the 3-2-6 versus Tennessee and those kind of things, I thought had a lot of value. And I like defensive coordinators that think like that. But like you said, the risk is, A, you got it wrong. Your read got it wrong. Or you anticipated a plan of attack that offense, it wasn't actually going to attack you that way. So there's a lot of assumptions that end up being made. If you get it right, sound like a genius. But Arkansas, same thing. A lot of positive things. They're a Christmas tree team, right? For a lot of red and green. These teams always end up being kind of confused. So they do some good things on defense. You'll see in the run game, they're pretty solid. The pass game, they are the opposite of solid. They are porous. They are a gas. And and then you'll see some, but their efficiency is all right, that kind of stuff. We'll get into it. It's a weird defense. Do you want to start off with personnel or do you want to start off with total defense?
Let's talk personnel.
Okay.
Are they getting back their corner?
Yeah, that's what we have to figure out.
Jalen Braxton.
Yeah,
so
Braxton.
He is the best corner on the team. He hasn't played in 6 or 7 games. Is that right?
Yeah, it's been since week 2, I believe.
But I think he practiced on Monday, at least in a limited fashion.
I'm hiding it. Homer, clever wardrobe decision to coordinate your mic with your shirt. Yes, it's always designed that way. All right, go ahead, Paul.
I was just going to say that's kind of an interesting thing for them. Can they bring out a little bit better cornerback play? Because their cornerback play has not been good. Their safeties have been confused. Their safeties bust. If this sounds familiar, sounds like Florida. Yeah, you're right. It does. There's a reason they give up 8.6 yards per pass attempt. That is no bueno. And I don't know what they're going to do to address it. But as I said, it's never good when you're 9 games into the season when the coach says we're throwing open every job in the secondary. And Texas fans, by the way, you've heard that before a few times, way too late in a season. So
there's also no answer for that. What did you have? You had secret elite freshmen that you're holding back. That's always nonsense. It's just to send a message. It never ends up with a better secondary performance.
I do like their front. But one thing I'll say about the front, particularly Landon Jackson, who gets a lot of attention because you look at him and he's like, oh my God, he's 6'7", 280 playing defensive end, and he can move. They're better against the run than his pass rushers. They can get after the passer a little. The thing I've noticed about Landon Jackson after watching him for a couple of years, he's a very situational pass rusher. And what I mean by that is if you have a certain type of offensive tackle who is short-armed and maybe a little slow-footed, Landon Jackson will destroy that guy. If you have an offensive tackle who's a little light in the britches and they don't anchor very well, Landon Jackson will drive him back into the quarterback. However, if you've got a pretty slick technical offensive tackle with good feet, Landon Jackson is not a problem. He just isn't. And I've seen it too many times. But then I've seen other games where the dude has 3.5 sacks because he has the right matchup. So kind of an interesting player in that regard.
I think Pigpen got it right too. Landon Jackson normally gets double team. He gets zero help. So this is where I have to, when I talk about Landon, he's the only top half edge rusher on the whole team, which is crazy. And then, so he has 32 pressures, 5 of which are sacks, and he's winning about 12% of the time. He's still the edge to watch out for, though. He's just easy to devote extra resources to right now. So it's like, dude, having one good edge rusher schematically is great because you can pull 2 guys to him. But unless you have like the Alabama, remember they would have like Will Anderson, you would divert there. Here's Dallas Turner. That's what it's the 2 edges that kill you.
Or they really need an interior guy who's collapsing the pocket.
Yeah.
And that's not happening for them. Their defensive tackles, they actually have several defensive tackles. They're pretty deep. And they're all good against the run. They're all big, physical, strong guys. They're not natural pass rushers. And they're not getting that quarterback to reset his feet or have to drift. And that really helps your edge as well, right? When your quarterback drifts into the sack. So that's an interesting aspect of this defense. It is the strength of their defense by far, the front. And when you see them, you kind of go, whoa, that looks like an SEC front. Like they got the dudes physically look like dudes.
Well, and they have a lot of maturity, right? Redshirt senior, redshirt junior, redshirt senior, senior, junior, senior.
100%.
So they have a lot of maturity. I know Arkansas fans are frustrated. Like you said, they were expecting that to be the strength. It is. But also the lack of pass rush with such a mature group is what's kind of frustrating. So let's talk. We can look at total defense here. Totals are fun to me. Paul, you can tell me what you think. Totals are fun, but we don't play totals. You either run or you pass. So it's like totals are great, but I almost always am looking at segmented style of football because you're running or passing. It's a binary kind of thing, unless you're those. So we can look at the totals here. I know it makes it simpler for some people, but opponent yards per play, 93rd in the country overall.
Yeah, giving up 6 yards per play is not good.
Yeah, and you'll see that it's the passing game that's
it's the passing game that's hurting them because teams don't break big runs on Arkansas. Typically.
They're doing the Texas special from last year. We'll talk about that.
That's right.
D points for drive, 81st. Teams are scoring. Defensive success rate, right in the middle, 69. They're good at their limiting explosiveness, 50, like you said, but they're weak in havoc total. So they're not doing great at causing a lot of issues. All right, so let's look at the running game. This is where they're strongest, and this is where Texas can struggle on offense more. Opponent yards per rush, 38th, only allowing teams to average 3.9. Defensive rushing success rate, also really good, top 20, 19th. So teams are not able to consistently move the ball on them, and very importantly, they're not gashing you. Texas is not an explosive running team, so this doesn't really matter for us, but I would expect our trend to continue of us not breaking a ton of long runs. What do you think about? But like I think you said it, but their personnel in the run game is much stronger.
If we get some more of the Jaden Blue we saw against Florida, we might start breaking some runs. So we'll see how they line up against this.
Yeah. But good rushing defense, so we expect to want to exploit them through the air. Defensive line yards, this is a good example of Paul saying their personnel is good against the run, 37th. So you're having trouble with those. What is interesting here, though, that I would need to go back and look at more, really bad on short yardage.
You know why?
Why?
It's not the D-line.
Their linebackers aren't plugging?
Their linebackers don't plug. Their linebackers are athletic and they can run around. They're not super physical and they bust like assignments, and they're not about that 3rd and 1 life. They're about that 3rd and 7 running around, being athletes' life.
Defensive stuff rate, they're not great at getting in the backfield. So I guess the philosophy of let them get 2 yards and hit them, which is kind of Texas's philosophy right now as well. Okay, let's get to the real star of the show where the biggest mismatch on the field is. So their passing defense is a nightmare. So 118th in the country in opponent yards per pass, 119th in success rate, so you can nickel and dime them on top of that. And then pretty good in the explosive pass rate.
Not really.
Comparatively,
You're right. Comparatively, that's their
Yeah.
strength, but it's 74th in the
It's
country.
a relative strength, and it's not a good relative strength.
And kind of what I was referring to, they're not getting the quarterback on the ground a
Right.
ton. They do get some pressures. I mean, by they, I mean Landon Jackson. But they're not getting quarterbacks on the ground, and they're not altering. Like, look, we had 1 sack against Florida, but there's no question that our rush altered the game and altered the quarterback, right?
Yeah.
So they're not getting a lot of that. And I just think that 8.6 yards per pass attempt, man, if you're over 7, you've got some, you're not a great secondary, right? You've got some issues. 8.6, that's really tough. That's because you got to factor in that they've also, they've played Ole Miss and some dynamic passing offenses. They've also played, some scrubs that can't throw the ball. So this is not a good stat.
And they have kind of the problem Texas had last year. They're not as elite of a run defense, but basically they're doing good enough in the run game to frustrate you and then force you to the pass. But the problem is they can't defend the pass.
Yeah.
So they're forcing people to their weak hand, not their strong hand. And so teams are able to just go through the air. And if you guys go and watch that Ole Miss game, I don't think it'll give you a fair representation of what will happen versus us, but it'll just show you. It was bombs away versus Arkansas. It was crazy.
So, Connor, let me ask you this. Given our strengths, our predilections, given their inefficiencies, and the fact that what are their strengths on D, could Travis Williams roll out a 3-2-6 and just say, I don't think you can run the ball on us?
Yeah, I mean, that's whenever I saw him do it versus Tennessee, that's kind of what I thought. Because a couple points, right? Sark, the first 2 years struggled with that defense. He figured it out later. So I'm not going to say last year he struggled with it. He didn't. But the 3 high safety defense is interesting. Quinn can get a little – so it would limit your pass rush, which is good. They don't have a strong pass rush, and they wouldn't be sending a lot of guys. So Quinn would be more comfortable, but there would be a lot of guys just in his vision in the middle of the field. And then also you can, from a 3 high defense, you can get into almost any coverage you want to get into. So to me, I would play that. What about you? What do you think?
I would play light. Yeah, whatever Texas comes out, I would have an extra defensive back, and I would just keep 2 or 3 safeties deep at all times. And if Texas wants to nickel and dime, fine. Nickel and dime and try to run the ball on us. At least we've created a tempo that we can live with, and we're not going to have a track meet. Ultimately, if there's a track meet in this game, it's going to be one-sided because I don't think Arkansas can keep scoring over and over without turning it over eventually.
And my track meet is almost going to be a yak track meet. Like give it to Bond and let him run. I don't doubt. Yeah, exactly. The yak meet. I don't doubt that Bond will be able to beat the secondary if they don't play back. But I'm not, like I said, I'm not in love with Quinn Ewers' deep ball ability to like hit them on the outside. Because like you can catch actual fades on them. That's just not our game. That's not Quinn's game. So I will be interested how we do deep pass versus a weak deep passing secondary. But we've faced a lot of weak secondary statistically this season, and Quinn. There's no correlation between Quinn's performance and a poor secondary. Sometimes it's
almost like game plan,
right?
Yeah. What I'm hearing you say is start Arch Manning.
Yes. No, actually Trey Owens.
Oh, Trey Owens. Yeah.
Yeah, Trey Owens there. Yeah, Arch Manning. So silly. I'm a Trey Owens truther. Who has a better O-line, Tennessee or Texas?
Texas.
See Arkansas having a similar game plan. What they did to Tennessee. Texas has a better pass blocking offensive line than Tennessee. I don't know about Tennessee's run game. Also, Tennessee schematically makes running easy on their running backs because they send 900 receivers out of the box. They force safeties and nickels out of the box, and then you get like 5-person boxes. So they statistically might be a better running team. I don't know. I haven't looked.
They are.
Okay, but if they were, a lot of that too is just naturally due to their schematics.
Yeah, Dylan Sampson has been big for them. They do run the ball well, a lot of because of spacing. Texas has a much better offensive line across the board, particularly at tackle. It's not even like they're not even in the same realm. Like Tennessee's tackles would be third team. At
what's Carrick playing for them? Is he a tackle?
Guard.
He's a guard. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I think they're having schematic success over at Tennessee. But as far as like what you're talking about NFL pedigree, it's not close. Are Arkansas's linebackers disciplined enough to not bite, overreact to Sark's motions or shifts? I haven't.
No.
Yeah, I haven't been.
They're not. And that's the reason maybe for them to play coverage. Because if they get into a lot of blitzing and forcing coverages and simulated pressures and all that, it's going to look a lot like that Florida where they're bringing backers and Gunnar Helm takes 2 steps past the line of scrimmage, catches the ball, and jogs into the end zone. So, yeah. Yeah, Richard, hit that like button. Please, all of you, hit that like button. There's a bunch of you in the chat. It means a lot to the algorithm if you like the video. And subscribe.
Yeah, if you're on Twitter, like the tweet, share it around, give us a retweet.
Absolutely.
All right. So like we said, the advantage here is the passing defense. And then I thought Paul made a really good point where he said when I said Quinn is inelastic or is elastic based on the strength of a secondary, and you said it's really game plan. It's really, when we do well, Sark did well. And so that's what's going to be interesting here to see schematically how we do that. Their efficiencies are still pretty good, right? 51st in the country there, even for all their flaws. Bad at second down, 82nd. That's good. That's a mismatch for us. Really bad on early downs EPA. So just first and second down, they are giving up way too much, which is interesting. And that's important for Texas because our offense can bog.
Yeah.
So if you mess with us on first and second down, you put Texas into a fit. So this is good that Texas theoretically should be able to be in like third and shorts. Red zone D, pretty good again, 45th. It's probably what's bolstering that efficiency they have here because they are giving up a lot of yards, but they're not letting everyone finish there. So that's interesting. Of course, Arkansas is still a good team. They're 26th in the country in their talent rating. 74th in sacks per game. The pass rush is not getting home. They do well in interceptions per game. And I think that's probably because of the unique style of defenses they can play.
Hit on the team talent rating. Quick stat that I remember from looking up. Give you an idea of the SEC versus the Big 12, right?
Yeah.
So Arkansas last year, their recruiting class finished second to last in the SEC. Okay. That recruiting class would have ranked second in the Big 12.
Yeah, it's crazy. I remember whenever I was looking at Vandy's team talent rating, and I was like, man, Vandy like sucks in the SEC. They're still like 50th in the country for team talent rating.
Yeah, it's like higher than Oklahoma State. It's
dude. I was like, man, this really is a different thing, man.
Yeah, it's a different deal.
Yeah. Fumbles per game, not doing well at getting those. They're 94th in the country. And then because of Taylor Green and company getting rid of everything and them not getting a ton of turnovers, they're 93rd in the country in turnover margin. So like Pigpen said, if they don't turn it over, Arkansas can really play you close, even win.
Penalties also a factor. They get penalized a lot. A lot of it is holding. So that's something that's an important derailer of their offense.
Yeah, 104th in the country in penalties per game. And they have played a pretty good schedule, right? 10th in the country. So they've been tested. They failed those tests. I love the kind of the mindset is like, well, this team's battle tested. Yeah, they failed the battle test, though. We have this kind of unique way of looking at it. But we know what Arkansas is. If Arkansas stays out of their own way, dude, can you imagine if this team was like top 20 and not turning the ball over? Like Arkansas would have a real shot in the SEC.
Oh, they'd be like 7-2 right now.
Yeah.
And here's what's interesting, though. So I love that this is a morning game. That's very helpful for our cause.
It is, yeah.
But also their last 2 home games, you know what the scores have been, Connor?
Mississippi State or Ole Miss almost killed them.
Ole Miss beat them by 33. Yeah. LSU beat them by 24.
So when I was listening to their podcast, they have this problem at home of not showing up at home, and Texas is great on the road.
Well, and not an insult to Arkansas fans because they are raucous when things are rocking. When they don't start well, Arkansas fans go, oh, here we go again. And the place turns into a mausoleum. And they sit on their hands, and it's just it's a negative feedback loop with the team. If they have a good quick start, then the fans get into it, and then they've got a real surge. But I think that's their home field advantage is real, but they've got to have success early.
Yeah.
If they don't, it's actually a negative field advantage. The players actually are like, oh, here we go again. Oh, we've been here before. And it feeds off the negative energy in the stands, and they go in the crapper.
Yeah. And yeah, we remember in 2021, that night game, man, they're just the hum on the TV, how loud they were the whole time. I mean, they went crazy. Yeah. So they can have an incredible environment. But like you said, they need to be doing well.
And also, I mean, just very quickly, I watched Arkansas games early in the year when they were playing Oklahoma State. They flashed the crowd, horns down.
Yeah.
They're playing Oklahoma State, and they're doing horns down.
Dude, but I see horns down. Like Arkansas, it makes sense.
I saw Baylor fans doing it.
That's what I'm saying, dude. I saw it at a Virginia Tech game one time. I was like, dude, what is going on? Like, I get it with Arkansas. They're still like, there's bad blood there. But whenever I'm like, these are ACC teams. What is going on, dude? It's become awesome. Like a universal, just like diss. It's like it's ascended even Texas Longhorn. It's just every rival team now is horns down. It's pretty fascinating.
Who has Texas beat on the road this year in the SEC? Just Vandy.
Just Vandy. And
but
this
it's going to be, Arkansas and A&M. We'll add that.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. But that's going to be interesting. Ole Miss dominated Georgia too.
Yes, they did.
Dude, that was a fun game to watch, man.
Georgia has showed up for exactly one game. Well, 1.5 games this year. A half against Clemson and a full game against Texas.
On defense. They showed up on defense.
Yes, that's right.
Dude, that's what bothered me when they beat us, because you can watch the post game. I'm like, they're gonna lose another game. They just showed up for us. They've been sketchy regardless. It's interesting. This game should be 6:30 p.m. easily. That'd be fun. Well, actually, no, it shouldn't. For you guys, yeah, it'd be fun for y'all. But also the problem is like the rivalry with Texas and Arkansas, get it, but it's not like a national thing, so they're not going to give you the big spot. We need to kind of build this rivalry back up.
Well, honestly, man, it's a one-sided rivalry in the sense, one, Texas has sort of dominated it. Not recently, but historically they've dominated it. But also, it's one-sided in the sense that Arkansas fans still have feelings about Texas. Texas fans, if you're under 50 years old, under 45 years old, you're not aware that Arkansas used to be our number 2, number 3, sometimes number 1 rival, right?
Yeah, but the ingredients are there. It needs to be built back up, right? Because Arkansas fans are handling their side of it by being raucous. That's what you need, right? And then they need to get better. So there needs to be some back and forth. But it's potential for like a pod system if you play OU, A&M. Yeah. I want Arkansas back, man. That's good for business, man. If we can have three,
Big Ten nailed it in the chat.
If we can have three rivals, regional rivals and stuff, that's good for business. It's good for fandom. So I hope the Arkansas stuff comes back. I see a lot of like, it's not a real rivalry, all that stuff. I don't care. Let's make it a real rivalry again. It was. But you're right. If you weren't born at a certain time, I feel weird for like A&M taking too long for us playing them. It's like there's some people that don't even understand what's going on with A&M. So
they'll understand in a couple of weeks.
They'll understand, yeah. If we lose to Arkansas, that'll make it a real hate rivalry. Yeah, we've got to sell the fight, guys. We've got to like build this rivalry back up because we let it get away from us, or Arkansas headed out the door. All right. Let's see. Don't forget that we've been fortunate to have faced either inexperienced quarterbacks or second, third string players or teams decimated by injuries. I think we're overestimating ourselves. Absolutely possible. I talked yesterday, fans get really mad because the rival fans are like, y'all schedule sucks. The reality is it's not a great schedule. We have had an easier go. It is what it is. I know fans don't like that, but it's just true.
I mean, it is funny when an OU fan says your schedule sucks. It's like, yeah, you suck.
Yeah, exactly. It's your fault.
Get better at football.
Exactly.
We'll have a better schedule, guy.
Exactly. It's not our fault.
Don't go 1-7 in the SEC.
The funniest one is I saw they were like, man, that's why you guys chose to play Michigan. It's like these are scheduled years out, dummies. Yeah. Like Michigan was good in winning a national championship. We can't help.
Yeah, when we scheduled Alabama, Michigan, and Ohio State in successive years, it was because we want to win easy non-con.
Yeah, and we joined the SEC. We didn't go, hey, SEC, give us an easy schedule. It's like we're not ducking anything, and we're not playing FCS teams in early season either. Like Texas doesn't duck opponents. If you look historically, it just worked out this year for whatever reason that the teams we play aren't that good, but they could have been.
All right, buddy. Do we want to talk about some other games of interest real quick?
Yeah, let me see. Let me finish here if there's any questions. If we lose to Arkansas, back in the day, it was Texas and Arkansas in the Southwest. Yep. When I was a little kid, the Arkansas game was huge. Number 1 and number 2, super close games. Yep. So it'll be fun. Let's pull up the opponent games of interest. So, of course, we're not really asking Paul who's going to win these games. Most of these are joke SEC late in the season games, but it's mostly so we can talk about the dreaded 9-way tie that can occur.
It is possible. So there's a chance that Texas, depending on how the season unfolds, we could go to the SEC title game and have a shot at the number 1 seed in college football. We could miss the playoff entirely. We could go 10-2 and miss the playoff, or we could go 10-2 and earn the 5 seed, or a 6 seed or 7 seed. So there's a lot of ways this could play out, and our fate is largely in our hands. As long as we win out, our fate's in our hands.
It's 100% in our hands if we win out.
But if we lose a game, any game,
who knows?
It could get scary if some crazy stuff happens.
Yeah.
We want Georgia to lose, by the way.
Yeah, continue to lose. And so if Texas wins out and Tennessee were to win out, beating Georgia, then it'll be Texas versus Tennessee in the SEC championship.
That'd be awesome.
If Tennessee loses and Texas wins out, most likely is then Alabama.
Yeah,
Texas versus Alabama. So that's kind of how it can work out right now.
I'd rather play Tennessee.
So would I. I don't trust Nico. So, yeah, I'd rather play Tennessee as well.
I don't trust your ability to say his last name.
You are strong there. Yamdalavaleva. Yeah, it's Nico Yamdalavaleva. If you guys Yama
Lieva.
Yama Lieva.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. Opponent games of interest. Tennessee versus Georgia. This is, of course, going to be the marquee matchup. Georgia 9-point favorites. I was actually kind of surprised by that.
As am I.
Yeah.
So this opened at 10.5,
the line.
and I may have bet on the Tennessee Volunteers. So I think the thought here is that they don't trust Nico, particularly on the road, and they think that they're trying to. So put it this way: they keep imparting, "Oh, Georgia's going to show up for this game, surely." Right?
Georgia can't lose 2 in a row.
Georgia can't. Oh, look at the talent. Oh, they wouldn't put themselves out of the playoff. But the realization is Georgia's been having trouble getting up every week. So I would take Tennessee in the points. But look, if Georgia plays to their potential, they'll win the game with margin. But they haven't played to their potential.
The national side, I swear they only watch them versus us. If you watch them versus
here's
us,
the problem, Connor. That was the most watched game in college football this year.
Yeah, fair enough. But if you only watched us versus Georgia, you have a totally wrong view of Georgia this year.
Yeah, Texas fans have a totally wrong view of Georgia based on that experience.
Yeah. So it's that's the tricky part where everyone's like, man, Georgia's dominant. It's like they're not dominant. Watch every other thing. They don't get me wrong. I'm not discrediting what their defense did against us. That was an inspired performance. Everything else has not been inspired. And then they're doing weird stuff where the player is happy post game, and then Kirby Smart calls him an idiot. They're having a rest. There's something not right in Athens culturally, and they're just not as good as they've been, man. Statistically, in every category, this is not a dominant Georgia team. We're literally giving them credits for the ghost of Georgia right now.
Yes, sir.
As a Hog fans, Texas Born Orange is 100% better than 10's pink orange. I have to agree with you there.
I got to agree. The day glow orange, that's what you want to wear on a hunting vest or a life vest out in the ocean. It's not good. And the thing is that the way you can tell is when you just use it as an accent, it's not bad. But you'll notice that Tennessee wears a lot of black or colors that are not their school colors because they know when they go all orange, it looks ridiculous.
All Georgia's biz games have been on road or neutral sites. This is the first big game.
That's a good point, Ryan.
For Georgia. That is a good point. And that will be an interesting variable because Kirby was finally, because apparently Georgia just doesn't really even get big games at home. And because they've had light schedules over the past years. And so,
and then Florida's a neutral. So
Yeah, and
great point,
they're big.
Ryan.
Yeah, their big games end up being SEC championships.
This is why our chat is the best. By the way, Hog fans, very insightful. Thank you for being in the chat. You've been great.
Yeah, we appreciate y'all. And so Murray State versus Kentucky, there's not even a line on it from where I looked. So Kentucky will likely win this matchup. The only reason you would watch it is because we're going to play them the following week.
Kentucky, real fall from grace. I think the off-season flirtation with A&M, but more than flirtation, they hooked up. But then A&M, A&M kicked him out halfway through the hookup because their girlfriend was going to show up. But yeah, I think Stoops I think that team was like a little side eye at that guy when he came back.
How could you not be?
I mean, seriously.
Yeah. So watch Kentucky just if you want to know what we're getting next week. But yeah, they're going to win it. Same with New Mexico State and Texas A&M. A&M almost 40-point favorites. Not a surprise there. Do you think they cover that?
It depends out if they want to, basically. New Mexico State's really bad. So
anytime they get that big, though, I'm always like curious.
Who starts it? Marcel?
I would think so, yeah. You can't go back. You can't go back to back. You can't do that. Can't be flipping quarterbacks that often.
Can't be flipping.
Yeah, so it's like you got to stay with Marcel. But it was cracking me up, dude. Texas A&M thought they got like a Heisman guy because he could run the zone read versus LSU. And then they had to realize like, oh, you need to be able to pass as a quarterback too.
Dude, this SEC slate sucks, except for Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas.
Yeah. Well, dude, either people are on bye or this is what's not cool about the SEC is like
the late season scrub game.
Yeah. And basically what they're doing is they're just being able to prep for postseason or whatever. It's I don't like that style, man. We need to go to 9 conference games because this is so stupid as a fan to have FCS teams right now. So watch Texas A&M. Watch them. I'm sure you guys will already. Mercer, Alabama. Feels to me like Alabama's really coming on, man. I feel like Tennessee can lose this game to Georgia. And to me, it feels like a Texas-Alabama SEC championship. And so I'm keeping a special attention to Alabama. What do you think?
Yeah, I fear Alabama because of any layoff with Kalen DeBoer being able to game plan.
Yeah, he's got Sark's number too, man.
That guy's 5-0 against Stan Lanning and Sark.
Yeah.
So there's a reason. Oh, yeah. LSU, Florida. You left that out.
Oh, yeah, I didn't because it had no actual implication.
Oh, no future opponent. Got it.
Yeah. So, because LSU won't make the playoffs if people went out, and Florida, of course, not making the playoffs or the championship. So I did not include LSU, Florida. Even though it's a fun game to watch.
We don't know if Lagway's playing or not yet.
Yeah. If you ask Napier, I mean, he was playing last week.
Lagway would make a big difference, but I think LSU is going to light him up throwing the ball.
Yeah.
Florida doesn't have many coverage answers. So,
yeah. And then shocking, DJ Lagway did not play last week. That was hilarious gamesmanship. He was also trying to. Did you understand? He was trying to like an exploit. He was like trying to gaslight DJ. Part of his press conference was talking about how some injuries are mental and some are physical.
Ooh,
and that was like super weird. And then and it felt like it wasn't Napier's decision about Lagway. It felt like Lagway's camp was like Lagway's not playing. And so. But there was weird messaging going on where he was talking about mental versus physical injury, and just like he was trying to basically trick DJ Lagway into playing. It was super weird, and I was like,
Lagway has to preserve himself for spring practice at whatever campus he ends up on, right?
Yeah, But
you don't want to tear his hamstring.
They're going to keep him. They're going to keep Napier, so who knows, man? He stayed dedicated the first time.
Are they going to keep
the fear, man? You know what the fear is? Lagway to A&M.
Yeah, I wouldn't like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't like that at all. And so that's what you don't want to occur. Any more news on Florida's basketball coach? I have not followed that. But dude, that Florida AD is in hell right now. All the fans are furious at Napier. He's having to do that. The basketball coach is coming, like having issues. It's like, man, it's tricky, dude.
Auburn too. Freeze is stinking it up. The basketball team had to have their flight diverted because they got into a brawl.
Yeah, dude. Dude, the SEC is awesome, dude.
SEC. Very colorful.
Dude, it's awesome. All right, Paul, that was fun. I hope you guys understand the Razorbacks more. Like we said, this team doesn't shoot themselves in the foot. They're going to give Texas a really good game. Other than that, Texas will win easily. So, but there is always that risk with them. You're not just going to guarantee. It's not a guaranteed beatdown. Fans, thank you so much for hanging out. I always enjoy this. Paul, thank you for hanging out as well. I always learn a lot from you.
Yeah, thank you. Support our sponsors, Laura Baker, Gabe Winslow.
You know the deal. And then tune back in tomorrow, guys, 9:30 a.m. Myself and Ian will be talking schematics as we do on the Wednesday show.
I would skip that, to be honest. I don't think Ian has any.
Yeah, Paul's not a big fan, but I hope you guys are. All right, everyone, have an awesome day. See y'all tomorrow. Hook 'em.